Hi, everyone, and welcome to our parent workshop, Parenting the Struggling Child. I am Kiara Edgar with Keller ISD Special Education, and we are so excited to have you join us tonight. Christina Henninger, our parent liaison, is going to start us off this evening, and we'll introduce our guest speakers.
Hey guys, hey team. Thanks for coming and joining us. We are working on getting all of our families some really great information. It's been a hard 2020 and 2021 is giving us a run for our money already. So I am really excited that we have these amazing presenters. This is a husband and wife that, there she is. It's a husband and wife team. Jody is a licensed professional counselor. He is the director of operations at His Story Coaching and Counseling. And the beautiful lady next to him is Alicia, at least Mrs. Jones. She happens to be my son's homebound teacher. So I kind of love her the most. It is appropriate for me to love his teacher. She's been in special education for 25 years, and she has had a vast variety of experiences and roles in different districts. And so her perspective added with Jody's perspective, experience, and knowledge is what we want to share with you guys today, so that way we can kind of get a better idea on how to help our kids and how do you help them and how do you better meet their needs. So we're excited that you guys are here. Thank you so much. Okay, Jody, Alicia, it's all yours. We're so excited.
Here and it's okay. I appreciate you guys having us here today. So we put just so you guys know a little background, we put a workshop together a couple of years ago, I guess, and Alicia's right here. She'll give me guidance and input and support. But we put a workshop together a couple of years ago that we did here in the training room at His Story, of course, pre-COVID. And it was really about a journey that we've been on. Our daughter, some of you, I don't know who's out there, but some of you may know, and she shared her story. So I feel okay sharing this because she's been a part of this with us before, but about 3 or 4 years old, I guess, she started showing signs of struggle outside the house and school settings and things of that nature. And so then for the next, say, 15 to 17 some odd years to now, this has been a journey that we've been on with her. We've been on one together and we've been on one individually. And so as we went through this, there was a number of things that we felt that, man, these resources are what other parents need that are going through challenges like this. And there's many things that we didn't have that we thought, man, now that we have them, let's share, let's give some perspective and let that journey be a healing process for others. And as we continue to grow and learn the mistakes that we made, let's be vulnerable and share those so you guys can, not make the same ones or incorporate them into your journey. So that's where we're at. Now, we had done this workshop, is about 3 hours long. And then since COVID, we've gone online with some people asking us to share. And we've chopped it down here to, a 40, 45 minute hour presentation. So that's what we're going to do today. We've ended up breaking it in 2 sections. And I don't know if it's been communicated, but this is part 1. This is tools for the parents. And so as we work with parents and kids, this is the part that will equip you guys to navigate some of the challenges that you're undoubtedly going through. And then part 2 will be the tools for the kids. Now, there's a lot of overlap because we're on the same journey with each other. There'll be some overlap, but this is specifically geared to things that you guys can learn from us and our story, hopefully. So I'm going to have Alicia come up and start. She typically will start from a relational standpoint for a few reasons. Number 1, she just tells the story better. She's better at that. She's got a better memory of it. Secondly, because she's a mom, and we know that moms have this just a certain connection there that she can share and empath and relate and connect. So I want her to do that. And then also she sort of lays the foundation for a lot of things that I'm going to talk about. I'll end up fleshing out some of her thoughts. So Alicia, I'll turn that over to you.
Okay, just like Jody said, usually in our longer talk, I'll spend about 30 minutes going through our story from really the time we started this with Hannah as a toddler all the way up to where we are now with her. But I'm not going to do that tonight because I really want you guys to get the tools that you're here for. But I wanted to start off with just some of the feelings and emotions that we have experienced over the years, and actually still do experience. So basically, I'm going to start with the first one, and that's just sheer helplessness. We have just experienced that many times. You know, when our kids are little, those things like they fall down, they skin their knee, you get the Band-Aid, you give them a hug, and you send them on your way, and you're just like, oh, I just made everything better. And with some of these challenges, it's just not that simple. And it's so hard to watch your kids struggle with these challenges and in this capacity. And so just helplessness has been a feeling that that Jody and I have really struggled with over the years with this. Another one is just plain feeling alone. With Hannah, a lot of times when she was younger and we would make plans with somebody, we would have a really bad day, or she'd come from school and it would have been a bad day and we knew it was going to be a really tough evening and we would have to cancel plans. And so as that continued to happen, as plans would be canceled with friends, and that repeatedly happened over the years, we had some people kind of drop out of our lives, and we just felt isolated and alone. I think sometimes, even though our friends might be really good friends, if they're not dealing with this situation in their home, and it's a situation that really affects everyone in the home, then it's hard for them to understand. And so that's something that we really saw happen, especially in her younger years. And then I know as adults, we think we shouldn't really compare ourselves to others as much as sometimes our kids do or our teenagers do. But definitely over the years, for me, comparing myself, seeing other people that seemed to be thriving, families that were doing great, everything was going wonderful, could have been on social media, it could have just been in our circle of friends, but just really feeling like we weren't doing things right, or we didn't have it all together, and kind of beating ourselves up for that. So the comparison factor was a really big one in the middle of a bunch of our struggles. Fear, just plain fear when you have this going on in your household. I can remember Hannah was 10, and I can picture it like it was yesterday. She had been having struggles for, at that point, 5 to 7 years with severe anxiety. And then some depression started coming into the picture. And she was taking a bath, and she just looked at me and said, I just don't think I can be here anymore. And the fear that gripped me when those words came out of her 10-year-old mouth were incredibly strong. And I think from that point on, I had some fears before then, but definitely bigger fears after that. Fears for her safety, fears of, is she going to even be able to finish school, because school for her was really challenging and getting her to school was challenging. So all these fears just over and over in my head of what if she can't do that. So fear was another big one for us. And then just life has been a roller coaster. Ups and downs for a long time. And honestly, we still have them. That hasn't changed a whole lot. We tend to have longer stretches of okay, but we definitely are still on the roller coaster ride, and we may always be. I've told Jody before, and it sounds a little bit weird, but sometimes I feel like I would feel more comfortable if we stayed just kind of level, or even if we just stayed kind of down, instead of getting this false hope when she's up that everything's better, everything's fixed, and then going back down again. And then we're back up, oh, everything's good, and then going back down. It just seems like when you go back down and when they tank again, it's just, it's just a lot to handle, and know that here we go again. And then you just kind of start that cycle. So the roller coaster of life has been a challenge as well. And this is my big one. This was my aha moment as mom in the situation, and when I had to kind of change my mindset. And that is when she was about 15 years old. And I am a researcher, I am a fixer, and I've spent most of her life trying to find things that would help her, that would make her feel better, that would help her be successful. And we've done many things, and Jody will share some of those. But at age 15, I had yet another one, and I was tucking her in bed and telling her good night. And I said, "Oh, Hannah, I really need to throw something your way. I think I found something else that you might want to try. I've read some really great things about it, and I think it'd be a great thing to look into." And she got quiet, and then I heard the tears, and she looked at me and she said, "I just feel like you're trying to fix me. I feel like I'm broken and you're trying to fix me." And that was my punch to the gut right there. And that was a moment that I knew that I needed to change, kind of shift my mindset. And anything that we were looking at to help her, to prepare her better for life, anything needed to have her included in that. And first of all, ask her, are you open to trying something? And let her be a part of that research process if she wanted to be. I did not want to portray to her that she was broken. We want our kids to know that, even if this is a challenge that is with them forever, that they're not broken and they don't need to be fixed, but we are there to try to support, help, heal in any way that we can. So that was a big one for me, probably my biggest one. And I still have to catch myself sometimes because I am a fixer, and definitely have to watch my words and the direction that I go with that. And the root of that, after I really thought on that night for a while, yes, I want Hannah to feel better, but really at the root of it, if I'm being honest, is that I was tired. I was exhausted. I had days that I didn't know if I could get up and do one more pep talk to get her out the door to school. And in all reality, the fixes that I was diving into and looking at, a lot were selfishly me wanting this to just be all better and go away, and we could just carry on with life. So it's my big learning moment right there. I don't know if any of you guys out there can relate to any of those emotions, any of those things that I just touched on, but that's kind of our life. And those are just a few things. And Jody is now going to give you guys some tools that will hopefully help you from those emotions that we've experienced.
Thank you. I hope that you can connect and relate, because really what I'm going to end up doing is fleshing out some of the stuff that Alicia talked about. There used to be a time where I would say, don't say that because I'm going to say that, but we may hear it 2 or 3 times, and that's absolutely fine because we're going to go into more detail. So we're going to do what I'm going to call the 5 E's, words that start with the letter E, just for some alliteration, just for some organization and what we're going through. So that's my plan. So we're going to start with explore. We're going to start with explore options. And so when we look at this, we have to keep in mind what Alicia was talking about is this fix. We're not looking at necessarily ways to fix. Let's keep that as a theme as we go through this. But we definitely, if there's a desire, if there's a need, if there's an opportunity to improve the environment, if your child is looking for help, for you to have resources in your back pocket so that you can craft an environment, let's look first at personal environment. Personal environment. There's a lot of things in the world that we aren't in control of. We know that. Everything that is, out here is in many ways beyond our control, but there's a lot of things that are in our control. So I would encourage you to focus on those things. One of the things for us, we looked at, when she was young, she wanted her room to be orange and red. Okay. And we're talking like red and orange, fire engine red and orange. And I'm kind of an artsy guy. I was like, that'd be awesome. And so we painted it. She helped. She was a part of it. And we got done. That thing was stimulating, not in a good way, but like, oh my goodness. And so coming home from a challenging school to a stimulating room, it was one of the first things environmentally that we changed. We provided a place in the change for calming and comfortable and a safe place for her to be. So that was a personal environment change for her. And so that's just one example of many things that are inside of our control. We worked with the school that she was in at that time and not to put burden on schools or only so many things that we can adjust. But there was a teacher that had a few ideas, and we made a few changes, and it was great. The few things that we did have control over, we made changes there, and it was beautiful. So there's a lot of things we can say that this is I can't do this, but there's a lot of things that we can. It can be simply their schedule, their routine, the family dynamic, what they're involved in, all of these little things that we can. Let's not lose sight of the fact that we have control over the opportunity to change those things. So take a look at the personal environment. Number 2 I've got here is counseling, mentoring, coaching. I'm a counselor, so I'm going to be biased here a little bit, but the reality is, so you can hear this from what I get in my couch here when people come in, is your kids really can't tell you everything that they need to talk about. I know we want to be great parents and friends, and man, they should be able to tell me anything, and they can't. They can't tell you that they're mad at you. They can't tell you that thought that they had. They can't tell you all sorts of things, and so they need someone to talk to. They need someone where they can just go and give motion. The emotions that they have, they need to be able to communicate those and get them out of their system. So someone safe that they can talk to. Counseling is great. We're ethically, defined by our inability to share things outside our office, unless there's some harm involved. So it's a safe place for them. But also mentoring is an option. If counseling doesn't work, or that sounds kind of weird to the kid or what have you, we had an older student that we trusted come into our house and just do art with Hannah and help her process things. Maybe you have an older a teen or a young adult in your social groups at church or fraternal organization or something, a friend that could come in and just mentor them and talk with them and let them get stuff off their chest that I know you want them to tell you, but they just can't, because there's things that's weird. My dad never had that weird thought. What am I going to do to tell him? They need somebody to talk to. And then coach, I should have put ing on the end of that, but coaches are wonderful. They serve a wonderful role. I bring this word up because many times counseling still has the stigma that we don't like. So we'll often say coaching, life coaching. So maybe they don't want to go to counseling, but they would go get some life coaching. And so we can come in under that guise and do the same thing. Or maybe you have a life coach that you could connect them to. The point here is that someone they can safely share to get stuff off their chest, out of their mind, because they're ruminating on things that they need to express. So something there that can help. All right, food and allergens. I love this one because it's just it's almost sort of out of left field. A lot of people don't think about this. If you don't live in this world, it's not something that comes to mind for you. For a while back, many years ago, Alicia was a certified nutritionist, and so we played in this world, and it became a part of our life. Personally, I've gone through a journey, but I want to share with you guys that we lose sight of the fact that the things that we put into our body, the fuel that we give it, impacts what comes out of it. How we feel, how we think, all of that is affected. Our brain functions best when it's given the best nutrition. Our gut functions best when it's given the best nutrition. I would argue that food is changing and it's not quite what it used to be. We're putting all sorts of stuff in our body, therefore affecting the way, for instance, pour gas in your car, your engine's not going to work well. Simple analogy. We have to pay attention to what's going on there. Sometimes it's a full-blown allergy. Sometimes it's a sensitivity. I have a gluten sensitivity. I don't have celiacs. I don't have a challenge in the allergy standpoint, but I do have a sensitivity. And what that means is there's certain foods that our body doesn't process well. So it becomes a toxin. And so once that toxin's in our body, all hands on deck to try to deal with that. So other things aren't getting what they need, but our body is changing and performing at a subpar level. So a lot more conversation on that from a nutritionist or dietitian. I'm going to say 3 things to look at from a food aspect. Now, if you went to a nutritionist, one of the first things they're going to do is say, make a food log. I need to know what you're eating. So you can do that without paying the money to go to a nutritionist. Just keep a food log and pay attention. Be curious. Do your own investigation. So there's 3 things that jump out for me as I work with people in our own journeys. Number 1 is wheat. You've probably heard this around. Gluten is a wheat protein. If you haven't lived in this world, that doesn't fully make sense to you. You do a little research. A lot of people say, is there wheat in chocolate? I'm like, no, it's not made from wheat. It's just chocolate. But if you don't know that, you don't know that. And that's fine until you do the investigation. So wheat protein, gluten is a challenge. It's not made the way it used to, and many of our bodies can't process that. So again, it becomes a toxin. Inflammation, things of that nature, pressure on the brain, all sorts of weird things happen. Number 2, dairy. Dairy is something that many of our bodies struggle with. They've promoted it quite well that it does the body good. There's challenges for some people, so just pay attention. You're going to hear the word casein. That's the dairy word. So casein, dairy, that's something to pay attention to. Just make a list. And the other one is sugar. Pay attention to sugar, how much is going in. And you'd be surprised at what things have sugar in it. You're thinking, well, they're just orange juice. I mean, orange juice is great, right? Some of those are pretty much just a bunch of sugar. So pay attention to that and just know that that's what's going into their body. That's what they're operating on for the day. Great way, make a ledger and just pay attention, make a little log, and you go, wow, he was so great at dinner last night. We were playing games and eating pizza, and the next morning he was a bear. Okay, pizza for dinner. Let's make a note of that. Pay attention to what happens next time we have pizza for dinner. Now, the challenge with pizza is it's gluten and dairy and a lot of times sugar. So you're not, giving yourself a lot of information there, but pay attention to that. Another one that always comes up is red dye 40. Red dye 40, pay attention to it. I've got kids that, and they just had a Gatorade, doesn't even have any sugar in it, right? It's got the sugar substitutes and all that. Red dye 40. So just things like that. It could be a number of things depending on what your body processes and deals with. So I just throw that out there for something to consider as exploration. And by the way, you guys are doing exploration right now. Being a part of this is wonderful. Go to others, read books, do the exploration, do the Alicia thing and get the research. Just be careful how you use it, but knowledge is valuable for this process. Vitamins and medication. I'm going to throw this out again, kind of like the food allergens. There's a lot of information that can be had by people more intelligent than me, but from my own personal journey and my readings, we need to pay attention to what these levels look like in our body. They affect the way our organs work, our brain, our gut, our bodies. And so many of us as kids, we didn't go get physicals and figure all that stuff out because, we're just, that's old people stuff, right? If you go to the doctor, ask for a vitamin panel. I would suggest it. You get into things like vitamin D, which is critical. We're not getting a lot of it right now, especially with COVID. We don't get a lot of it just because of gaming and indoor activities. It's the sunshine drug. It's what makes you feel good. Vitamin B is another one. Your B12. Check that level and just see what's going on. Because again, if we're out of sync, we're not going to be producing things well, and so we're going to be foggy brained. We're going to be down. We're going to be anxious because our bodies need that. Story for me. Pay attention to this, because if the range for vitamin D is like, I can't remember exactly, but I'm going to say 30 to 140. They vary a little bit. I go in and get mine checked, and I'm like a 39. Okay. So you're going to get that call and it says your vitamins are within range. You're like, okay, cool. That's not the problem. And you hang up and you think, wow, this is the range, 30 to 140. And I'm right here. Okay. It may be an issue. Low within range is not necessarily an okay thing. So pay attention to that. Look at your numbers and see what's going on. Vitamin B, the same way. There's a beautiful book written about a psychologist, or actually she's a psychiatrist, went in and did a study on women in catatonic stages in mental hospitals. And vitamin B12 was what brought them out of that. So vitamins play an important role in how our body functions. Just something to be aware of. An option for you. And then other, these are 4 things that I've listed. We've talked about stuff. Continue that journey of exploration. There's things out there. There's more stuff to look at. But remember that we're not looking at ways to go, okay, this week we're going to try this. Okay, this week we're going to try this, because they become a patient. They become a problem. They become broken and needing to be fixed. And so that's a dynamic that you have to be aware of. I like the quote, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Many of us live in this world of maybe tomorrow is going to be better, and we do nothing. And more times than not, nothing changes. And so that's a challenge that we need to be aware of. There's things out there that we can do. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. E is for encourage. E is for encourage. This is really about connecting. This little meme here, I love it and I hate it. Don't be ashamed of who you are. That's your parents' job. I'm assuming that some child made this. It's out there. I found it. I thought it was relevant to this. We got to work on connecting and relating with our kids. We've got to work on encouraging them. I'm going to go through a little thing called our 10 relational needs. A lot of us here in this office, depending on our modality, will use it in assessment. What I do with it on both ends of the spectrum. One, if you're an adult, we will often look at it to understand how your brain was developed, how your understanding of the world and understanding of self, and how you meet these things as an adult. So we look at that as a sort of a diagnostic tool, if you will. It's not really one, so I can't officially say that, but it's a look into your family of origin. On the other side, on the young side, I look, how are they being met? How are you parenting? How are you connecting with your child? Are these needs being met in them? So I look at these, I'm going to go through them. Again, this could be a whole workshop and an exercise on itself, but I just want to pop through them so you can get an understanding of what's going on with this. Number one is comfort. And Alicia talked about some of these. We talked about our own failures. I'll bring this up in here. Comfort's important. I got my little cheat sheet I want to bring up here. This relationship provides empathy and care. When they skin their knee, do you comfort them? When they do poorly on a test, do you comfort them? Are they shamed? Are they ridiculed? Are they teased? Do they know that comfort exists in the world? You're developing in them an understanding of how comfort works. Are you providing that for them as children? So comfort is important. Attention. Do you feel visible? Does your child feel visible? Does his or her, what's happening to them? Does it matter to you in the family dynamic? The fact that he's struggling over here, or that school is hard, or that this relationship is falling apart, does that matter? Or is everybody focused on this thing or this opportunity or this? Is there attention there? Acceptance. Acceptance is a big one. You exist without judgment and criticism of who you are and your choices. Does your child feel that you accept them, or are you trying to fix them? Are they a project? Are they a problem? Do they need to be changed, or do you accept them? That's something to consider. Affection. Affection is, does this relationship with your child provide appropriate love in various forms? Do you hug them regularly? Do you say, I love you? Do you connect with them, relationally? This was a big one for me. In my vulnerable stories, this was not the world that I lived in. My love for my parents was very strong in other ways, but it wasn't a touchy-feely kind of a way. And so for me to come into our family dynamic and not be the hug giver, not be the I love you person, except in special occasions, that was a challenge that I had to be convicted of and change my way. So Hannah and I went through that process and kind of me sheepishly and kind of I don't know, we fixed it. We're working on it. And so it was a challenge for me to overcome and provide safe touch. It wasn't an understanding until I became a counselor to how important safe human touch is right now. Again, something we're struggling with in COVID, but safe human touch is so important. And so we have to make sure that that happens in our relationships. Does your child get that? Appreciation. Appreciation is about appreciating your child for what they do. And many times I'm not going to appreciate him for doing his job. I mean, he's supposed to do that. He lives here too. He can pull his own weight. Okay, I get it. But how much of a difference would it make? A lot is the answer. If your child is appreciated for, hey, thanks for doing your homework tonight. It really helped me out a lot. Hey, thanks for being home on time. Thanks for being nice to your little brother. Hey, thanks for all you do around here. Hey, thanks for putting up with this crazy world. Hey, thanks for putting up with your aunt. Whatever it is, the opportunity to appreciate what they do is huge. Most of us reserve that for the big, huge things in life, and then we end up not doing it, or they get it 3 times a year. So appreciating them for the daily in and outs of, and honestly, that's good for just your relationships with each other and your spouse and your friends. Thank you for letting us do this presentation. Hey, thanks for trusting me on this. So appreciation's huge. Approval. Your child, I think Alicia touched on this, your child needs to know that you approve of them regardless. It's an unconditional love of whether you never get better, whether you never accomplish that thing, whether you don't grow into the person I thought you were going to be. Do you approve of them? Approval is huge, and most all of them sitting on my couch are seeking it. So I would throw that out there for you to consider. Respect, I get it. They're 10, they're 17, they're who we used to be, but they're humans and they deserve respect at their level. They deserve respect as humans, period, and then they deserve respect as a 10-year-old input, as a 17-year-old input. Some really smart kids out there. There's some really intuitive and perspective kids out there that we could give a lot more respect to. Does your child get the respect that they deserve? Encouragement. This whole thing is about encouragement. This is putting courage in you. The word itself says, I put courage into you. You can do this, man. I've seen you get through this before. You're good at this subject, or you can do this. It's a powerful thing to come alongside someone and give them that encouragement instead of the teasing and the ridiculing. Support, I like to say encouragement is giving the courage. Support is coming alongside and giving them the tools to do that. So you got this project, you can do it. Support is about, here, I'm going to stop by and get the poster board and the pencils that you need, or I'm going to make sure you're at practice on time. I'll be there for you, cheer. And that's the support. You can do it. I'll be there to support you. And then the 10th one is security. Security is kind of an undergirding of all of these. Do they feel safe? Do they feel safe to express themselves, to respectfully communicate their opinion? Yeah, you know, we do Taco Bell every Tuesday. Can we do roses this week? That should be a safe conversation. That opinion should be valuable. Do they feel secure in your environment, relationally, emotionally, and physically? Security is a foundational need for all of us, and it's foundational for all of these. So that one's really going to come through the relational needs for encouragement. So I throw those out there for your consideration to improve your child's well-being. No one has heard is, I put this up here as its own bullet point. It's one of the most powerful things that I hear when a kid comes in. I'm working with a teenager. Most of us would say that we do hear our kids and what they're saying is stupid, or they don't need to worry about that, or, oh my gosh. And so we do hear them. It's not really what they're talking about. It's not really what I'm talking about. When you truly hear someone, you understand why they feel that way. You understand their perspective, you understand their feeling, and you sit with them and you go, yeah, it's got to be hard. It's got to be hard doing school right now. Class has got to be challenging. I can't imagine doing it the way you're doing it. I hear you. That's a completely different way of hearing. It often doesn't involve solution. It doesn't involve correction or judgment. It's just hearing them and understanding their perspective. So I would throw that out for you to consider. All right. And then I'm just going to throw that up there. You'll hear it a few times. Again, it's sort of our underpinning of avoid the fix. Avoid the fix. You want to be there for them. Many of your kids are looking for solutions, and that's great. Some of them aren't yet. And so the relational connection is probably one of the tools you want to start with before you start throwing things out that they can do. Let's just connect and relate better. All right. The third one is embrace. E is for embrace. As Alicia acknowledged, you know, this is a challenging time. It's a very challenging season. It's a very challenging issue, situation, whatever words you want to put around that. But we have the opportunity as human beings and as parents to embrace what we can embrace. The reality of it is that we have a negativity bias. If you've not heard that term before, but our brain is designed to keep us alive. And so it's going to find things that threaten us, things that could endanger us, things that could harm us and hurt us. So we're on a hypervigilance to find things that, oh, that person is not safe. And oh my God, I can't do that. What if this, oh my gosh, what if on this person, oh, that one. So all of this is going on because our brain is doing its job. And if we've been in any kind of trauma growing up, it's going to be even heightened. And so now what was normal negativity bias gets ramped up a little bit because we're fearful. We got, you know, official or non-official PTSD dealing with traumas. And so we're looking at negatives. We're going to sit in that. So we have to embrace what we can, and we've got to find the positives. Okay. We've got to find the positives that we're sitting in. This is going to be a tool for the kids, but for us as well, as we're dealing with our own mental health and our own struggles, we've got to find the positive. So little exercise, take a little breather break. It won't be full blown because there's a lot of us and you're not in my office, but wherever you're at, I do this in my office, you translate it, sitting on my couch, and I'll say, without looking around, just tell me how many circles are in my office? How many circles are in my office? You know, I don't know, 10, 15. Okay, that's a pretty good normal guess. And so then we take the time, and we look around. So we start looking for circles. Okay, so now we start looking and we go, oh my gosh, the camera has one, and actually that's one, and that's one, and then each little light bulb inside of it is one, and then the water sprinkler, and there's actually 4 in there if you look at it. The clocks have about 6 each. My lamp has one there, one there, one there, and another one there, and then the bottom has actually 3, and then every light switch has a plug in it. All of my books have O's and things on them that are circles, and then I've got some things over there. And we start counting, oh, there's my bottle and my coffee cup, both sides of my coffee cup, and the pencil sharpener. We've got 100 circles because we looked for them. Okay. And we're not going to find them unless you look for them. If it's not something that matters to you, if you don't focus on that, you're not going to find them. But this is a beautiful exercise for you to train your brain to start looking for the positive things. And so what do I mean by that? It's a struggle. I don't want to make light of what every one of us has or was going through. But as I look at the bond that happened between Alicia and Hannah, it's a positive. That's a beautiful thing. Often doesn't happen in families where the kids are just off doing their own thing. So that bond is powerful. When I look at what I got to learn about myself because of what we stumbled upon, that was a positive for me. That was a huge growing opportunity for me to grab that. Our daughter loves to come and be with us. There's a relationship there, and that's beautiful. And I'm very thankful for that reality. I think about the first semester she was at college, and she's been through a lot, and it wasn't an easy transition. It was a pretty normal, kid going off to college transition on that first day and that first week. But as the semester goes on, she's got friends, struggling left and right with things that kids struggle with at school. And Hannah's like going, been there, done this. She's done tough. She's done struggle. She's done difficult stuff. And so it was a different dynamic. So there was positive in that. She learned so much stuff, so much self-care and tools and things that she'd been through with counseling. And so she was equipped for that. So that's just a handful. We could go on, but I don't have time to go through every positive I found, but just finding that positive. I'm thankful that Alicia and I are in this together. That's a positive for me, that it's brought us closer. It's given us this opportunity to put purpose around this and to help you guys. Those are all positives. Didn't start my life thinking this would be a great thing that my daughter goes through, but I'm finding the positives in it. And so we're looking at that opportunity. So we got to find those positives. And the other thing is present-mindedness. Alicia talked about this a little bit. One of the things that we struggled with. We can really get wrapped up and ruminate on the things that are years ahead. What if she doesn't go to school? What if she never learns how to drive? What if she never leaves the house? What if she doesn't find a boyfriend? What if, these are things that would just, oh my goodness, ruminate in our head over and over again. Well, the reality is she's at college, she left home, she's driving, she has a boyfriend. All of these things came to fruition. We put a lot of worry into that. So rumination on the future doesn't do us any good. We can think about it, we can plan around it, but we have to stay present-minded and say, what does my child need now? What do I need now? What does this semester look like? What opportunities do we have? What does this week look like? Let's stay here and focus on what we have control over and keep our worries, if you will. If you got to have some worries, let's keep them focused on a manageable amount of tasks. And so be as present-minded as we can be in this process, okay? All right. Excuse me while I do this. The next one, the fourth one, is enlighten. And this is really where I get to put my counselor hat on pretty hardcore and be a little convicting, in that, as Alicia mentioned, a lot of this is our journey more than anything. And I would challenge you to enlighten yourself on what that means to you. Why does this really matter? I'm not going to minimize it. I'm not going to make light of it. The answer that all of you will probably give, because my child is hurting, because I want her to be successful. I want him to have friends. I want him to enjoy life. X, Y, Z, and those are all great answers. And that's your 100% answer. And that's good. I agree with you. I'm right there with you. And then I'm going to ask it again, and I'm going to challenge you to go, you know what, maybe 50% of that is really because I'm tired, because I'm scared, because I wanted a different life, because it's driving a wedge into my family, because X, Y, Z. And so if 50% of this is really your child's struggles and 50% of this is your struggles, well, you've got control to some degree over this 50%. So we've minimized now the impact of that. So I would challenge you to go, what is this journey that I'm on personally? It really stinks that when we go to Thanksgiving dinner, my kid doesn't go with us, and I'm embarrassed because my brother's kids are all X, Y, Z. I struggle because it's hard for me to get successful at work because I'm always having to come home at lunch to take care of my child. It's hard for me to do that thing because of this thing. And that's something that we need to deal with ourselves, because when we change our expectations and we change our perspective, then this big issue becomes a smaller issue. Still super important, still real, still painful and hurtful, but we're dealing with a more manageable thing, and we're moving ourselves from the challenge. So consider those things. What are your goals and expectations when we give birth to our children? When our wives give birth to our children, we subconsciously or consciously, whatever we want to admit, we have goals and expectations. Whether they're going to be great orators or writers or business people or athletes or worship leaders or whatever it is that are it's in our mind, all of a sudden that's challenged or threatened. And that's something that we need to realize, that our goals are challenged, and then we end up bleeding that onto our kids. We bleed our grief, our disappointment, our sadness onto our kids. It's not their issue. It's not their problem. They were born to be who they're going to be, and they're designed to be who they're going to be. But our goals and expectations bleed on to them. And so that's something that we need to dig into and deal with personally. And so, of course, there's my word again, counseling. I would encourage you to look into that a little bit. And it doesn't have to be counseling. This isn't necessarily a plug, but sometimes that's self-assessment. And some of you are honest enough with yourselves to do that and consider those options. Some of you have great friends that can speak into you, a spouse sometimes, all sorts of opportunities depending on your dynamic. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a grandparent that sees it from a different perspective. Consider what's going on in your world and see, enlighten yourself on what that looks like. Okay. All right. And let's close my piece of the conversation anyways with empathy. I love this little meme. Again, I love it and I hate it. When someone says, don't be anxious and your anxiety is cured. It happens a lot. I'm speaking sort of in the anonymity of the crowd because I don't really know who's out there. But many times what we see is one parent is concerned and worried, and one parent is, well, they just need to suck it up and get over it. They need to deal with it. My life was hard too. Life was hard. And that's the challenge for me as a counselor. We go back to not being accepted, not being heard, not being understood, not being loved, not being valued, all of those things that kids come in with and that they're hearing from a parent or parents. And so I challenge you to look at empathy pretty heavily. And the first one I'm going to say is just not a choice. Now, again, I don't know who's out there. I don't know who I'm speaking to. And there's probably a chance that there's kids in the audience or kids represented in the audience that maybe there's a method of manipulation. Maybe there's something that they're doing that is a piece of some scheme or something. It's probably not at the bigger number. I will say that sometimes our body, our self, our brain develops a mechanism. If illness becomes the way that they get attention, maybe. But again, it's not purposeful, it's subconscious. And so that's something that could be looked at. But generally speaking, these kids, these students don't want to be there just as much as you wouldn't want to be there if you were struggling with it. They don't want to be there. The environment, the biochemical dynamic, the cognitive exposures they have, the loops that they're dealing with, the distortions that they were exposed to, all of these things are going on in their lives, and they're not choosing to do it. So I don't know if I can say that any stronger. With a few exceptions, it's not a choice and they're not choosing. So we have to gain empathy that, and this is a struggle that they are dealing with. Then and now. This is an exercise that you can do again. Sit down with your kid and take a look, come up with your own list of things in the world, school, dating, social media, tests, government, all sorts of things you can look at and let them share how they look to them now. And then you share how it was to you then. Even better, do it vice versa. You share kind of the way it was, and then let them share. And I'm 51. I know that I've been around long enough to know that life has been challenging. There's ups and there's downs, and we've been through tough times and Cuban Missile Crisis and the oil embargo and things of that nature. But I would say that exponentially the world is different now than it ever has been. I think that's arguable. I probably should have some statistics on that, but I think that we can all agree that there are some significant challenges right now that are going on. I didn't have to worry about being harmed in school like they do now. Maybe a bully, but not what they have to face. War and politics and all of these challenges, social media world, and exposure to information like never before. Interesting perspective. Read an article back in the day, whatever that means. Back in the day, we used to have our little neighborhood of friends, and that's who we knew. Maybe some people at church or our parents' friends or people from school. That was our world. And we had to learn how to navigate and manage those relationships. Some people were in, some people were out, and there was all different types of people, and we learned to manage them. When Bob's grandmother passed away, or when Susie's mom had, a challenge or a divorce or something, we could care and worry about that. This is a world where social media has opened us up to everybody as our neighbor, everybody's life we are exposed to. And this isn't really a talk about social media as a challenge. It's really a then and now dynamic of there are so many more things that our children nowadays have on their minds than we did. And that's a challenge for them. It can be modified and worked on, but just acknowledging that this world is different than our world is a huge process of empathy and understanding what they're going through, because it's so different. So then and now is a great exercise to go through. So that's a segue really to this. Their lives will look different. We'll talk about this in the in part two when we look at talk to the kids about, or talk to you about how kids get to choose, need to choose, take care of themselves and balance. Their lives are going to look different. You have the opportunity, going back to environmental changes, things that we do have control over. What can you modify? And then what can you be okay with based on your own goals and expectations? Example here as we bring our life into it. You know, Hannah is a near 4.0 down in Austin. And so she could have done things academically that she didn't need to do emotionally. And so there were AP classes that she did not take because the only reason to take them was for the status, not for what they would give her in college and what she was pursuing. And so we had to become okay with that reality that she didn't need to be in those two AP classes. So she took classes that a lot of parents probably wouldn't want their kids to take. And that's okay. And it was a good thing for her, but her life will look different. And we've told her that. And she's come to learn that in a very self-care kind of a way, is that I don't have to look like everybody else, and extracurricular activities and these two things and these five things and this and this and this. We got to look at that and what works for them. And we've got to be okay with their life. It doesn't mean, and we say this in both of our workshops, that they don't have to do anything. There's always that tension between acceptance and a little bit of push, a little bit of growth, and help them through these things and grow. And that's all there. But we can't look at that and go, you can do this. I'm going to force you through these 4 AP classes and a job and 2 sports and volunteering at church. That's a huge thing that overwhelms a lot of kids, even though they could do it. So I just challenge you to sit in your reality of your expectations and goals and go, you know what? Their lives may look a little bit different, and that's okay. So those are 5 things that I wanted to go through. Explore, encourage, embrace, enlighten, explore the options. Lots of stuff is out there. We just touched on some of it. Be an Alicia, research, find stuff, go to things like this, read books, all sorts of stuff is out there. Encourage, connect with them emotionally. There's a lot of logistical solutions and just do this and do that and here's this, but until we relationally connect with our kids and honestly with each other, I mean, these are tools just to deal with people in life as well, but we've got to connect emotionally with them so that they don't feel like outcasts, so they don't feel shame, they don't feel like they're broken or they don't understand. We've got to encourage and connect to them relationally. Embrace what is good. Embrace the positive that's around us. Find the fact that, you know what, this is okay, that we're growing through some stuff together. I'm learning about myself, that we're having dinner together because we can't go do this thing. That's okay. Embrace that. Enlighten. What are your challenges? What are you bringing to this? In any relationship, whether it be marital or employee, boss, what do you bring to this that's causing tension on your side? We can deal with some of that and make the situation much better. And then you'll find as you heal yourself, you're setting the example for your child as well. And so you can do some things from your side. And then empathy. Understand that this is a challenge they're going through. They don't choose it, at least not consciously, maybe subconsciously, their body is choosing it. We don't know that. That's one of the many options here. But we need to pay attention to that and empathize the best we can. And we'll get a lot more healing through empathy than we will through expectations and demands and things of that nature. So I'm going to bring Alicia back up and let her close with just the end of the story, if you will, and some relational pieces of it. So thank you very much.
Okay, so the word that still comes to my mind, the word that came to my mind several years ago when I went to Jody and said that this is something that I really, really felt that we should put out there, is the word hope. And before COVID, we would do these workshops and I could look into everybody's eyes in the audience, and I can't do that right now. It's really hard for me because I could see connection. I could see when people could relate. I could see the tears. And I can't see that right now, but hope for all of you all sitting out there is really what we wish for you. We desired that you'd gather a few tools tonight to hopefully help you in your journey, no matter what age, what stage you're at with your child. Hannah is currently 20 years old and she's attending college and living independently 3 hours from home. And honestly, we couldn't have even imagined that 3 or 4 years ago. She's doing it, but not without counseling, not without a lot of family support, a lot of self-care that she's had to learn, and a whole lot of pep talks. And I'm telling you, I had one 2 nights ago. Like, I don't think those are ever going to go away. And that's okay. I'm glad that she seeks out my comfort, my opinions on things, but she spent all day packing. She's been home for about 5 or 6 weeks for the semester break. And she kind of fell apart the other night because change is really difficult for her. And she's about to move to yet another place because just life and things going on right now. She's had to change living situations again in Austin. And she just broke down and she said, you know, I feel so comfortable at home and I love living home and being here, but I know I can't do that forever. I'm 20 years old. And she just burst into tears. And you know, I really feel like she knows that, she's aware of that, and she's trying really hard to adult and do life. It's hard for her. The world is a difficult place for her. It's hard for everybody, but some of our kids, their emotions, their feelings are extra. They're extra. I'll just stop with that. And so they feel things more, all the stuff going on around them. So I think our kids really need a safe spot to land if they're, 8 and having trouble in school, or if they're 20 and they're 3 hours away. Having a safe place is super, super valuable. So we just want to encourage you to keep hoping for your children, no matter where you're at. And we just are really thankful that you allowed us to share our story and these words tonight. Thank you.
Jody and Alicia, thank you so much for tonight. I am a parent. Those of you who don't know me, I'm a parent of 4 kids, and one of those, our second daughter, has anxiety and has been dealing with that for several years. And so this was very helpful and to do some self-reflection. So I really appreciate it. We do have a couple of questions. Is there an age that you recommend to start counseling?
As a counselor, oops, if you can mute here, I'm getting feedback. I'm sorry. As a counselor, I'll be a little biased. We have play therapists here. I mean, they exist everywhere. And so once they hit 3 years old, play therapy is powerful. It's a different dynamic, but it helps them express. Basically, play becomes their language and toys become their words, is kind of the way the play therapist would put that. So it's not too early if they're 3 years old, but it just gives them a great way to express their struggles.
Shannon, I can send you that information. Shannon asked about your information, so I can send that. Lauren asked, what is the best way to work with teachers for a struggling child that is impacting their performance?
You want to answer that? Is that in the teacher world?
Well, honestly, when Hannah was in the elementary school, we did just try to build those relationships with the teachers, and I would, at the beginning of the year, kind of set them up with, here's where we're at, here's probably some things you're going to see, and really keep the lines of communication open with the parents. And interesting, we didn't even bring this up, but with Hannah, is she was kind of a perfectionist, and she didn't want people around her to really see her struggles, and especially in elementary school. So she would go to school and hold it together like really, really well for 8 hours, and then come home and literally just walk in the door and melt down. And that was what we dealt with from like 3:30 to bedtime. And so the teachers kind of looked at us sometimes like we were absolutely crazy, because they're like, what? We don't see that. And we actually ended up kind of having to explain that going on, and why we needed some extra support during the day at school is because we really needed home to be a little bit better in the evening. So just, we had the lines of communication and we're very open and real, and Hannah was totally okay with that from an early age and really wanted the teachers to know what she dealt with. I don't know if that helps.
Now, I think one thing that's important for us that we hope to share, I feel compelled to share that, I said this early, but just say it again, that Hannah has been a part of this journey with us. So we're sharing some things that I feel that some would go, wow, you're telling that story. Hannah's told her story. People know this. She's given her testimony. She's done this. So she's good with this reality. And some of that is what takes the shame out of things. Be honest about what's going on. Work with, and it may not be the teacher gets you, but maybe there's others on the call or on this, you can connect with support groups or something of that nature to where you can be honest about what's going on. Because part of the struggle is the shame that we live in, that we're the only ones or no one would understand. And we don't want you to feel that way. So as comfortable as you are in your family dynamic, being vulnerable, I would encourage that, because you'll get a better sense of peace through that process.
Christina, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, sure. So I was thinking while we were getting that question, and I was like, okay, so being in the role of special ed parent liaison, being a special ed parent, being a who has the best teacher, by the way, Miss Alicia, that's you, girl. You're the best.
Thank you.
Honestly, really is the best. But the one thing, and have been in education and been a teacher, the one thing that I definitely, there's like a series of steps that if I knew a family was struggling as a teacher, or what I do every year, and Alicia unfortunately can testify to this too, but I always meet with the educator, I meet with the teacher, it may be more than one, and I like everybody to be together in the same room, and we kind of discuss and talk about what the goals are of the meeting as far as what are we trying to learn from each other. I definitely always share our story. I share my experience with my son, and I allow there to be room for difference. So that means kind of what Alicia was talking about as far as my middle son, who does not know I'm saying this, so don't tell him, nobody tell him, but he is also a perfectionist. He also has very specific and set expectations. And so going in and knowing what those strengths and those weaknesses are allow me to have an honest conversation with the teacher. But at school, he's like the most amazing child that ever existed. He like never steps out of line. He's just keeping it together all day long. He gets home and it's a different story, like what you guys were sharing with. So it's something that is very relatable, and it happens to a lot of children. So when I speak to his teacher, like, what are you talking about? But if we share and we have this conversation about what the differences are, it just makes us understand these children and these students better. And the teachers can kind of help get in front of some of those issues that make it difficult to come home and be in a good, relaxed state and enjoy your home time. The other thing is I always like to set a goal, like what are our goals? We're a lot of us on this call are special ed parents. And so we have goals already done for us in our students' IEPs. And so that's kind of something I like to keep in mind too with these, when speaking with the teacher. My goal is to get him to come home from school and not be upset. So let's talk about how we can get there. What can I do? What can you do? It's just like a constant collaboration. And then also chocolate. Teachers love chocolate. Chick-fil-A, Starbucks. Love hugs when it's appropriate. It's not appropriate yet, but hopefully in a couple of months it'll be appropriate again. But teachers literally make a thank you, Jody. Thank you. I can't do it, so thank you. Teachers make the world go round for our students and for us too. And so just understanding that they are a valuable part of the success of your child and giving them the space and the respect to know what to value their expertise, really. And chocolate.
And Ms. Calhoun talks about her son, her child really struggles with eating a variety of foods. And if you guys have any advice to parents who are struggling with that frustration.
Your thoughts?
I don't know. Honestly, not one that we've dealt with very much in our home situation. So I don't know. Christina, you may even have more to offer on that than we do. That's just not something that our kids.
I think, I mean, I will be honest, it's just a hard situation. It sounds like, I got to read the question in the chat. First of all, Mom, it sounds like you're doing a really great job. So the things that you were saying that you had already worked on and that maybe didn't show the success that you were looking for, I was really proud of you and I was really inspired. I thought, okay, this girl's got it going on. She's got all these different strategies and she's thinking through. But I guess my advice would be, because when my son was younger, food aversion, we had a feeding therapist. We really had to work through the basics in eating and then what was available to eat and what was not available to eat based on nutrition and those kinds of things. My advice is reframe your success. So I know it's really hard to hear because you're in the meat of it. And I'm sorry to say it, because I know that if I would have heard it back then too, I would have probably been a little eye rolled. I would have definitely eye rolled at my own self. But reframe your success. I realized that if my son took one bite or even just took it to his mouth, that was a success for us. If he was able to take the spoon and get it in the vicinity of his mouth, even though it may have ended up all over, that was a success for us. So I would definitely recommend stepping back and finding the little moments of success so you as a parent don't get burnt out, and that you are able to kind of take that deep breath and go back and just keep trying those strategies. I will try to figure out how to communicate with our wonderful parent who asked this question specifically and try to get some resources to you. And Kira, if you'll help me with that.
So Christina, I have her email address, and so we can.
Okay, I'll try to
same page.
Let me give this thought. One thing would be is I would look at that as, what are your biggest worries? Because my guess is that you're afraid that he's going to starve to death or be, not eat, and he's going to be a 50-year-old that doesn't know how to eat. So that's your piece of it that you can remove from that. I'm 51. I ate SpaghettiOs and mayonnaise sandwiches when I was a kid. So, the future doesn't have to be as gloom as we think it is a lot of times. And then the other thing is, what is that becoming? Because it's probably not about food anymore. It's probably about control or something that he is dealing with, that I have control over this. This is something that they can't make me do. It's my body and it's my mouth. So maybe there's something else there. And then really just we always try to go back to the relationship. And, there'll be a time, I don't know how old the child is, but when they get older also, there were many things that we couldn't as parents get our kids to do. But then one friend environment changed it like that. And so all of a sudden he won't eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, whatever it is, but he's sitting with these people that matter to him at school and eats a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We've been trying to do it for 6 years, and then he does it like that. And so sometimes we just let life be the instruction that we couldn't give him, if that makes sense. Obviously, we got to guard all of that and be smart in that. But many times your kid doesn't clean his room for 17 years and all of a sudden he gets a girlfriend and it's like that. It's like, wow. So those things do happen. And so we hope in those things and we pay attention to that.
Thank you, Jody. So we have one more question. How do I get my child to be excited about anything? He just doesn't care about anything, and I feel like my encouragement is being taken as nagging.
Yes, so that's a challenge, because what we want to do is we want to help them. We want to get them out of the hole. I would say number one would be connect. And I know that's a general comment, but I go back to relational needs and sit with him, sit in his world, understand what he's going through. He's doing something. He's staring at the ceiling. He's reading, he's Instagramming, he's doing something. Engage in that world with him and be there with him so that he knows it's good. And then once you get in there with him, then you can come out together, hopefully, once you connect. But we have to connect with him. I would look at the environment that he is in. What are the toxins that are coming into his world? What are the things that he's fighting against? There may be this one thing that he can't get off his mind that he doesn't have a safe place to share. Maybe he is sitting there worrying about what it's like when he goes out into the world. And so therefore he stays in the world. And again, I'm grasping at straws because I don't know his exact situation. So step one would be connect with him. Step two would be let him get into a safe place where he can share what's really on his mind, because he's ruminating on that and has no place to give it. So those are my thoughts on that.
Jody and Alicia, thank you so incredibly much. That is all the questions we have for now. I did write down a couple of email addresses, and we'll get to you guys on some of your other more specific questions. I just want to remind everybody that February the 11th, we will be doing the other part of the series and looking at tools for the student to use. And so again, Jody and Alicia, this is a personal journey, I know, for me and many other parents out there, and the pandemic has done nothing but magnify some of those stressors. And so I just really appreciate you coming and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.